You just bought a house out in the country. You wanted to escape the hustle and bustle of the city and slow things down a bit. There's one thing though, you now have a septic tank on your property. Now what is a septic tank? So a septic tank is an on-site sewage facility. Basically all the wastewater that exits the home has to go somewhere, so it enters into a septic tank. Now what the septic tank does is store the wastewater, and as you use water in the home, it's going to raise up and exit out to your drain field or leach field, whatever it's called in your area. Now in our area, it is typically recommended to pump out septic tanks about every 3 to 5 years. The state of Texas TCEQ actually has a chart that you can go on based off how many bedrooms are in your home and how many people are living in there. You may have a couple, 1 to 2 people living in a home on a 1,000-gallon septic tank. They can go much longer than a family of 7 on that same system. Another determining factor of when you need to get the septic tank pumped out is what exactly is going inside of the septic tank. I highly advise people to follow the 3 Ps. Now what is that? That means poo, pee, and paper down the toilet only. No wipes, no feminine products. Once you start adding things like that, you start decreasing the time your septic tank can go between pump outs. Now, how can you go the longest time between pump outs? If the only thing entering the septic tank is what comes out of you, that is guaranteed to increase the time between pump outs necessary. I know a lot of people are grossed out by the fact that some people throw away their paper. Some people are grossed out by the fact that people even throw away their wipes. But if you use a trash can that has a lid with a scented bag and make sure you take it out pretty frequently, you shouldn't have a problem with smell. Now, me personally, I have a bidet installed on each of my toilets. So there's literally no paper products entering my septic tank. I could probably go, I don't know how long, but I can go pop the lid right now to my tank and there's hardly any floating layer at all. Now, over time, the septic tank is going to separate into 3 layers. You're going to have a top floating crust or scum layer that's built up of fats, oils, grease, paper, things like that that are buoyant that will float. Over time, the natural enzymes from the bacteria in the septic tank will begin decomposing and eating away at that organic matter, and that'll sink to the bottom and create sludge. The layer in between is effluent. I just call it dirty water, and that's going to pass over to the next side, which is the outlet. From there, it's going to go out to the drain field and seep through the soil, where the earth is going to do its thing of treating the wastewater. That way it doesn't contaminate the groundwater. So behind me, I don't know if you can see, but in Texas, the tanks are usually pretty shallow. So you've got a dead spot marking where the tank is. I'm going to show you a couple diagrams of some as-builts when you go to get a permit to install a septic system. But before 1985, a lot of these systems do not have any paperwork. So it can become a hassle to find it. I would recommend finding someone reliable in your area that has either a flushable transmitter or a camera. That way they can get straight to the point and find the septic tank without having to tear up the yard. But these dead spots make it pretty easy. So what we're looking at here, it's in the shape of an oval. This is a 1,000-gallon 2-compartment tank. So you have one tank, but it has 2 compartments, the inlet side and the outlet. All the wastewater from the home is going to go into the inlet side first. It's got a concrete wall separating the 2 different chambers. So the second side, the outlet, should be mostly just water. If you have really thick buildup in the outlet, you've got a problem. You need to watch where you're putting down the drain, or you need to have it pumped out more frequently. From the outlet, it's going to go out to the drain field, where, as I said, it's going to go and get treated by the soil. That way it won't contaminate our lovely groundwater. So on this property right here, I'm going to uncover both of these lids, get it pumped out, and hopefully after that, the new homeowner should be good to go for the next 3 to 5 years, as I say. But if there's more people living in the home, I'll put the chart right here again. Follow the chart. If you're not in Texas, look up your state's recommendations. It should be pretty easy. Just search septic tank in your state, and the governing board should have recommendations for you. I know a lot of people get scared about septic tanks. They're so used to just paying a bill and whatever they flush down the drain, as long as it makes it to the street and down to the city sewer, they're a-okay. It's actually cheaper to live on a property with a septic system. So this pump out is going to run about $450 for this homeowner. I'm going to put the breakdown right here, but when I was living in town, my sewer bill was about $33 a month. I was paying $396 a year. Now with a septic tank, you're paying $450 every 3 to 5 years. So over time, it eventually is cheaper. Now here's another question I frequently get asked about: additives. Your grandpa tells you need to put a dead raccoon once a month under a blue moon. You've got your neighbor telling you as long as you throw this chemical down the drain, you should never need it pumped out. The state of Texas actually doesn't recommend any additives. The way a septic tank works is supposed to be like a filter. Once you start putting additives into the septic tank, it is going to break down those big chunks into smaller pieces, and that becomes a problem because those could potentially go out to your drain field and cause problems. As long as you're following your state's recommended guidelines on pump out frequency, you shouldn't have a problem. If you even want further proof, you can grab one of those additives, look on the back, and in really fine print, it is going to say with occasional pumping. So probably the biggest problem we see is flushable wipes. Now, they are marketed so heavily as septic safe, they're marketed as flushable, plumber approved, but let me tell you, once they get into the septic tank, they do not break down at all. What they do, the ones that actually do kind of separate, they become this really, really thick pulp. It's almost like paper mache. Now, you don't want to make a paper mache piñata out of what's in there, but let me tell you, it causes the septic tank to get so thick within a short amount of time that there are literally systems we're pumping out twice a year. I've told them, if you want to go longer between pump outs, stop flushing them, and they just would rather pay us to pump it out. So more money for us, I guess. Septic systems are a crucial piece of your home, and when they go wrong, it can make a mess inside the house. I just had one earlier. The septic tank was backing up, hadn't been touched in 30 years. It was a mess. We've had a full schedule all week, so I was able to kind of sneak in and get them unclogged, but their bathtub was filling up with sewage. You don't want that, so stay on top of this and it won't become an issue. If your septic tank does back up, how do you diagnose it? So here's the septic tank. If you open up the lid to the septic tank and you see water bubbling up, you have a problem with your drain field, or you have a filter on your outlet that needs cleaning. I don't see a lot of filters in our area, so 9 times out of 10, it's a problem with the drain field. If you open up the septic tank lid and water is all the way to the top, that's fine. The septic tank is always going to be full up to that inlet pipe. Once it goes over it, that's a problem with the drain field. Now, if the level is fine in the tank and you go over to your sewer clean out and unscrew that and see water bubbling up, you have a clog between the clean out and the septic tank. So then you would need a drain cleaner. I've been seeing a lot of problems in our area where a plumber will go out to a septic tank, open it up, and immediately say, it's full. You need to call a septic guy. And we show up, look at the septic tank, there's no floating layer, it's just water all the way up to the top. It was just pumped out a year ago. It really doesn't need pumping out. There's a clog somewhere. So hopefully this can kind of bridge the gap between septic and plumbing. Come together. We're on the same team, guys. But we have a pretty good relationship with a lot of the plumbers in our area, and as soon as the customer says they have a septic tank, they will say, immediately call a septic guy. Because it's really unfortunate when a homeowner calls a plumber, they run their drain cleaner down the clean out, it does nothing because the septic tank is so thick, it needs pumping, and then they get hit with that service charge. So most of the time the septic guy is able to fix it, but if it's a plumbing issue in the house, that's where a plumber would need to be involved. But yeah, that's basically the gist of it. If you have any other questions or concerns, I would refer you to your state's website where they should have guidelines on pump out frequency. A lot of them actually have numbers of licensed septic pumpers in your area that you are able to call. Don't be scared if you're on a septic tank. That's basically what this video is about. Don't be scared. We're here for you. So if you got any questions, let me know. And without further ado, I'm gonna get to pumping this tank. I've got my handy dandy soil probe here. You tap that and you hear concrete. This one's pretty easy to see, but if you don't see the septic tank, you can contact your county. They should have a drawing on file, but take that with a grain of salt because some of these septic drawings look like they were drawn by a blind 5-year-old. So this is going to be, like I said, a 1,000-gallon 2-compartment tank. It's going to have an inlet and an outlet access port. These are about 20 inches in diameter. If somebody comes up to your house and tries to pump out the septic tank through a 3-inch clean out, now I have seen these older systems that's the only way to get access to it without digging 5 feet down. You have to open up both the inlet and the outlet to properly pump out the septic tank. So we're going to do that right now. These are pretty shallow, so it's not that difficult, but keep in mind here in Texas, there's a new rule passed that new installations have to have risers 2 inches above grade. So no more buried tanks. So if you have someone out to pump out your septic tank, they're probably going to charge you if they have to dig it up. So it will come in handy if you get those risers installed. If you want to see how to install risers yourself, I've got a video on that. I'll link it right here. But it's not too hard. And it'll save you having to dig up your yard every 3 to 5 years. Clean these up a little more. And you want to make sure you lift with your legs on this. You don't want to hurt yourself. All right, so here's our lid. It's got a rubber handle, about 20 inches in diameter. Get this popped open and see what it looks like. So you can see we've got a little bit of floating crust. It looks like toilet paper, but you can see water. That's a good sign. We've got a 4-inch inlet baffle. Inlet baffles are required in the state of Texas. So you can see in the yard over there, that white piece of PVC sticking up, that is the sewer clean out. If there's ever an instance where your toilet doesn't want to flush, it's backing up in the house, open up that sewer clean out and come find the septic tank itself. Get that popped open. And there's a very common occurrence where when it gets so thick, the septic tank has been neglected 10, 15 years. This will no longer be water. It'll be straight up sludge, almost the consistency of mud, and it will clog up that inlet baffle. But I mean, this tank looks like it's in good shape right now. The only reason we're emptying it is for a real estate transaction. So you got the inlet over there towards the outside edge of the tank. You got the outlet, and there's the outlet baffle. As I said, you hardly want anything floating on this side because it's going to exit out this pipe and go and seep down into the drain field. How you doing, sir? Inlet over there and the outlet over here. It's one tank with a concrete baffle wall separating the 2 chambers, and then that goes out and drains into the drain field. There is no physical way that you can pump out this septic tank from that sewer clean out over there. That is only if you need access to clean the drain. That will in no way do anything to this septic tank. So just a heads up if anybody tries to pull one over on you. And now let's get this tank pumped out. So what we like to do, we like to use the CrustBuster to stir up all the contents of the tank to ensure that we don't leave any big chunks behind. Now there's some people that don't use one of these. They may pump out the tank and then back flush it to stir up the bottom. I just find this easier because you can do it as you pump. But don't be concerned if no one has this, as long as they get the tank nice and clean. Another thing I've seen is when I empty the tank all the way, rinse it off with the water hose so I can see the concrete bottom, somebody says, no, don't do that. You're getting rid of all the starter bacteria. Well, my buddy, he had a good point about this. He said, okay, well, if you go in there and lick the walls, you're not going to get sick because there's no bacteria. I always thought that was funny. I mean, I always joke around saying I get the septic tank so clean you could eat off it, but don't do that. You'll probably get sick. And also, don't let anyone con you into leaving a foot of sludge behind and saying it's starter bacteria. Unless your state guidelines explicitly recommend doing so, don't listen to someone trying to tell you that. And also, if they leave a tiny little bit in there, that's not a huge problem as long as you can see the concrete for the most part. Where it becomes a problem is where people start leaving huge chunks behind. And you also have some of those homeowners that stand above you with a flashlight saying, you missed a spot, you missed a spot, you missed a spot. I'm gonna get it clean by my standards, and if you want it cleaner than that, I'll start charging you by the minute. You can hold that flashlight and spray wherever you want. Let's start the clock. But I'm pretty confident in how clean I get these septic tanks. I take before and afters just to cover mine and my company's in. Also keep in mind that as you use water in the home, this is a 1,000-gallon septic tank. So if you've got a full family living in here, it's going to be filled with water by the end of the week. There have been so many times we've had people call, say, hey, you just pumped out my septic tank, it's full again. And I tell them, of course it's going to be full. Do y'all not use water in the home? I got to break it down like I'm explaining it to a 5-year-old to get my point across. And I don't blame people. I mean, I do this every day. So I know how it works. I understand how it works. But if somebody told me to take apart the motor to my truck, I'd be lost. So I get where they're coming from. I just try and explain it in the simplest terms possible. As you use water, it's going to empty the tank, fill up to a certain point, and then as you use water in the home, it's going to exit, go out to the drain field. If somebody has a simpler way to put it than that, let me know. So we got both sides of the tank pumped down, rinsed off. The homeowner should be good to go for the next 3 to 5 years. If you want me to do a more in-depth video, let me know. This is just scratching the surface with some of the commonly asked questions I get asked out in the field. So this pertains to conventional systems. There are also LPP, LPD, advanced treatment units. There are systems where the effluent is treated inside the septic tank and then goes out and is sprayed through sprinkler heads. There's a whole lot of different systems, so let me know if you want to see more in-depth videos on those systems. If you got any questions, drop them down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, you appreciate the information, smash that like button. I'm gonna get everything put up and hit the road to the next pump out. If you want to check out any of the tools I use in my video, like hoses, the Mighty Probe, the CrustBuster, you can check the description box down below. Those are affiliate links that's gonna help out me and the channel. And as always, I appreciate y'all watching. Smells like money.